guys, what's up? Welcome back or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Before jumping any further into today's video, be sure to click that subscribe button. We are trying to hit 5K or get as close as we can by the end of the year. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I post videos 3 times a week, so there is always new content to binge. It's been a hot second since I've done a Q&A video and I've been itching to do one on my channel, but I wanted to kind of make it revolve around one specific theme. And ever since I announced that I was officially working for myself full time, you guys have had so many questions. I've received them through YouTube, Instagram, my podcast. And so today I thought we would do a Q&A all about freelancing, working for yourself full time, answering all of your questions. We have quite a few to get through, and if I don't answer your question in today's video, leave it in the comments down below, and depending on the amount of questions that I get, maybe I'll even make a part 2 to this video. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Okay, so the first question is, what do you do as a freelancer? Obviously, everybody who's a freelancer does a different thing, but as far as me and my business goes, I am actually an online producer, and I also do some social media consulting for smaller creators as well. I only have a few clients that I do consultations with, so my primary business is being an online producer. So I produce shows online for Broadway actors and producers, nonprofits, Fortune 500 companies. I've had my business since the middle of March, and I kind of like to say I was technically working for myself by that point already, because even though I was still employed by my 9 to 5, I wasn't working obviously due to the pandemic, but I officially became fully self-employed in September. Did you have a full-time job before? So yes, I have had a full-time job ever since I was 18. I've been working, a regular job, so to speak, since I was 15. Before that, I had been making money through acting gigs and other projects. But yes, prior to starting my own business and working for myself full time, I was working at Stuart Weitzman and Equinox, which is a luxury gym. Prior to working at Stuart Weitzman, I was a stylist and sales associate at Barney's in New York, which was a very, very well-known kind of like fashion flagship, if you will. And for those who don't know, I'm also an actress here in New York City, so I'm still definitely an actress, but as far as like a typical 9 to 5, that's what I was doing prior to working for myself full time. How did you come up with your business? This is a question that I see a lot online, people saying that they want to transition into being a freelancer, working for themselves full time, but they don't really know where to start. They're not really sure what kind of business they want to create. And so for me, it was actually really, really organic. I had been wanting to kind of start a side job and hopefully transition into working for myself full time. And then once the pandemic hit and New York City shut down, and I saw that all of these events that were supposed to be live and in person were being canceled, and so a light bulb kind of went off inside of my head, and I was like, somebody is going to need to pivot and pivot really fast and be an online producer for these events that were supposed to happen in person. So I took on my first client back in mid-March, and then from there it literally went from 0 to 100. I have a whole podcast episode actually about how I created a thriving business during a pandemic. So if you want to listen to that, the link for my podcast is always in the description box. And I also have quite a few other solo episodes revolving around me and my business, so that's a great place to probably get some answers to questions that I'm not going to be answering in this video, just because I don't want my content to be too repetitive. When did you know that your freelancing business could become your full-time job? This is something that I have definitely answered in full detail on my podcast, but I would say probably one of the biggest reasons that I knew I was able to transition into working for myself full time is the fact that, as great as the money in luxury retail is, because it is really, really great, the money that I was bringing in from my freelancing and producing business was almost triple what I was taking home in a month. So I was surpassing what I had been making before, and I knew that I could live very, very comfortably on what I was making in luxury retail. So the fact that I was making even more on my own business, I knew that I was going to be totally fine if I decided to make this my full-time job. But of course, there are a ton of other factors that went into it as well. I also think like a really big thing was the fact that I've always been very careful with my money, and I've always been very conscious of like building up a savings account and multiple savings accounts. I really, really like this question because I think it's really important, and it's how do you manage your time being a freelancer while still making sure you can still maintain a social life? Work-life balance is so incredibly important, and when you work for yourself full-time and you're a freelancer, I feel like the lines can really get blurred, especially for somebody like me who's working from home 24/7. So my home is not only like my office space, but it's also like my personal space and my time and space for relaxation. I think just the biggest tip that I can give is just set boundaries. So for me personally, I do not work with clients on weekends. That is like one of my non-negotiables. Weekends are my time to work on me and my personal brand, acting, YouTube, my podcast. It's time to hang out with my boyfriend and my puppy. I also typically don't answer emails past 7 p.m. and the clients that I work with know that unless I'm producing a show that night or there's an emergency. Typically I try and like to keep my email like off. But it's all about boundaries, and letting people know the things that you're not really willing to budge on. And one of the biggest, blessings about working for yourself full time is the fact that you can kind of design your schedule day to day. So if there's a social event that I want to go to, or, if I want a random Wednesday off, I'm kind of able to work ahead the days prior so that I can have that day off. This kind of goes along with the last question, but it was asked by somebody else. What are your typical work hours? Now, even though I work for myself, and like I said, I can kind of design my schedule day to day, I do like to stick to somewhat of a routine because I think routines are so incredibly important. Typically for myself, I get up at 7 a.m. to feed Dakota, and then I'll either stay up or I'll go back to bed for about 45 minutes or so. But usually 9 times out of 10, I stay up. Once I'm up, I'm up. And I actually don't mind getting up early because I feel like then you have more of your day, obviously. I like to kind of have a slower morning devoted to, again, me and myself, because you definitely, can't pour from an empty cup. So in the mornings, I like to make myself a really nice breakfast. I also take this time to work out, get a workout in, get a really good workout in. I don't like to rush that. I usually send emails relating to me and my projects, so my YouTube channel, my podcast, if my acting agent or manager needs anything. And then I usually try and get started on my workday by around 10, no later than 11. Obviously, there are some days where I don't have as much to do, so my day might start at like 1 or 1:30, but typically it's anywhere from 10 to 11. And then unless I have a show in the evening, which some days I do, I have a show that I produce every Monday night, I have a show that I produce every Friday night, but if I don't have a show in the evening, I typically try and stop working at 7. And that way I can still have an evening routine for myself, me and Kevin and Dakota can all hang out, so that's what works for me. Obviously everybody is different. Some people might like to get up and just immediately start working, because their peak motivation is like super early in the morning. It's just different for everybody. How to make a proposal that will win you the job. Honestly, I really think that this just comes down to showing that you are the best for the job, and not in a cocky way, but going in with confidence. I also think that just being genuine and kind will get you so much farther in life than like putting on a facade or like a character. So I always try and just be, as genuine and myself as possible, and I feel like that will kind of get you the farthest in life. If you don't get the job, 9 times out of 10, it's not personal. But I would say, oftentimes when a new client reaches out to me who hasn't worked with me before, I just kind of let my resume speak for itself. And hopefully by looking at that, they'll be able to see I have plenty of experience and I'm able to tackle any challenge that might occur, and I'm just the right one for the job. So I think that that's kind of the best piece of advice I have, is like, obviously, you wouldn't be asked to send over a proposal or, speak with a potential new client if they didn't think that there was a big chance you would be right for the job. So just go in with confidence, but don't be cocky, and always be kind. What are some networking/job posting sites that you would recommend for freelancers? Again, this kind of depends. It's like a case-by-case situation. For me personally, I don't use a ton of networking sites. I have built my client base primarily through word of mouth. Word kind of spreads fast in the industry that my freelancing business is in, so I feel very lucky in the sense that, getting new clients and building my brand has, come very naturally and organically. But as far as some sites that I have used in the past, both personally or hiring other freelancers through, you can use Fiverr, Upwork, LinkedIn, obviously. There's a great networking site that some of my friends use. It's called Alignable, I think. And obviously, we're in a pandemic. A lot of places and cities and states are not open right now. But, in normal times, networking in person is also so incredibly important and beneficial. That's also something that you really can't skip out on. So I always say, join Facebook groups with fellow freelancers, take advantage of networking events, and I think that that will really help you. But it's all about not being afraid to put yourself out there. We all started from ground zero at one time or another, so, never be afraid to just kind of extend yourself. Also, social media nowadays is so incredibly powerful, So if you're not using social media to promote your business, I feel like you're really not taking advantage of a humongous resource that is out there. And also it just shows that like you're with the times and you're trying to stay relevant and you understand, you know, the value in social media. How to determine your rates as a freelancer. There is literally so much that I could talk about when it comes to this question. I've actually thought about dedicating an entire podcast episode to this. I think it depends on, you know, what area of business your freelancing business is in. For me, the biggest things that I look at for when I'm asked to produce a new project is I look at the length of the event. I also look at how much prep time they're asking for. So whether they just need me like 3 days prior to the event or they need me the entire month before. I look at the team size that they're kind of giving me. You know, am I gonna be the main person kind of doing everything, or am I gonna have a team of a couple people, you know, that I can bounce things off of? And from there, I just send them a quote. And at this point, you know, I've been doing this for a while now, almost a year, which is kind of crazy. But at this point in the game, like, I know my value and I know my worth. But in the beginning, you know, there was definitely a learning curve. I was very much undercharging in the beginning because I didn't know anybody else who was kind of doing something similar to me. So if you're a freelancer who has friends who are in a similar field, I don't think there's anything wrong with just kind of flat out asking them what they charge, because that's really gonna help you to know if you're undercharging, if you're overcharging. For me personally, I didn't have that in the beginning. It was kind of trial and error and, you know, doing a job for one price and saying at the end of it, like, either, wow, like I think I charged super fairly, or wow, I did way too much work for what I just charged. And then you adjust, and there's nothing wrong with adjusting your quotes and your fees, you know, as your business continues to grow. I would say though, like if you have consistent clients and you're deciding to change your fees and raise them or lower them, whatever, but especially if you're gonna raise them, give them a few weeks notice. That way they can kind of be prepared for that change and decide whether or not they wanna continue working with you. How do you keep track of your finances as a freelancer? You guys know I love this question. I love anything to do with finances, budgeting, money, give me all the money talk. So I absolutely love an Excel spreadsheet. There is power in the Excel spreadsheet, and when you're a freelancer or working for yourself, a spreadsheet is going to be one of the biggest helps in the world. So I have a couple different spreadsheets. I have a spreadsheet for the invoices and the payments that I receive. I also have a spreadsheet for the clients that I'm working with and how much I'm charging each individual client and the quote that I sent them. I also, as far as bank accounts go, I have 2 bank accounts associated with my freelancing business. So the first of which is where I set away the money for taxes. Because obviously as a freelancer, you have to take the taxes out of everything that you're getting yourself. And in general, the rule of thumb is, you know, when you're a freelancer or you're working for yourself, you should set aside 30% of every single paycheck you get for taxes, just to be on the safe side. So that's exactly what I do. Every single time I get paid, I immediately put 30% into one bank account, and then the rest goes into my other bank account. And then at the very end of the month, I will look at the total, how much I brought in, and then I'll transfer a percentage of that into my various savings accounts. Speaking of spreadsheets, another one that I have, and this one is super important, is I have a spreadsheet of all of my write-offs. So every single time, you know, I buy something that has to do with my business, whether it be my freelancing business, my YouTube channel, my podcast, acting, I make sure to file the receipts and then put it in the Excel spreadsheet. I will say for the most part, I feel pretty lucky because there aren't a lot of expenses associated with my business, at least on my end. You know, my business is so new, it's not like I have a crazy amount of write-offs yet, but every little bit helps, so I think that's really important to keep track of as well. And the last question that I'm going to answer in today's video is, what are the best and worst parts about being a freelancer / working for yourself? I definitely think that the pros outweigh the cons for me. Obviously, there are things that, you know, make being a freelancer a little bit tougher. The paychecks can be not as consistent as working a typical 9 to 5. You have to worry about taxes. You know, those aren't taken out for you like when you work a typical 9 to 5. But as far as taxes, you know, that's just kind of almost like a minor inconvenience, but if you know how to keep track of it, you'll be fine. And then as far as the paychecks, I will say I feel very, very lucky in the sense that the paychecks have been very consistent. Obviously, the total amount that I bring in every single month does fluctuate, but I typically have a pretty good general estimate of what I'm going to be bringing in. My field of work is very, very much in demand right now because obviously there aren't a lot of events that are happening live and in person. So that is pretty much why the paychecks have been so consistent, and I definitely don't take that for granted. Like, that's why I always make sure to like contribute to my savings and make sure I have a lot in my savings, because if there's one month that's like drastically slower than the rest, I want to make sure that I have money to cover my expenses. But honestly, like for me, there are so many more good things about being a freelancer and working for myself. The biggest thing is just, you know, I have more time to do what I love now. I have the time to really make my own schedule every single day. I know that once everything is back to normal, something that I'm really looking forward to is like, I'm gonna be able to, you know, take more vacations if I want, because as long as I have my laptop with me, I can literally work from anywhere in the world. I'll be able to see my family more. I'll be able to go on literally as many auditions as my agent and manager throw at me, because, you know, prior to working for myself and working a typical 9 to 5, my jobs were pretty accommodating, but you know, there were days where like I just couldn't get away for an audition. So I'm really looking forward to never really having to say no anymore. And I love my freelancing business. I love everything about it. There really isn't anything to me that isn't fun. I love, you know, being on camera as the producer. I love doing the more administrative stuff, like the, you know, sending the invoices and the emails. I love all of it. And, you know, as crazy as 2020 has been, I'm just so incredibly grateful that it happened to bring me this new way of generating income and this new career path for the time being. Because obviously, you know, I don't want to be a producer for forever, but during this time when auditions are down and Broadway is dark, at least I'm doing something that like directly correlates with what I really want to do in life. And yeah, I'm just very, very grateful. I feel like I wake up every single day kind of like, how is this my life? But I'm loving every single second. I think that's a good way to end this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this Q&A. Like I said, if you have any additional questions, go listen to my podcast episodes, my solo episodes, because a lot of them have to do with my freelancing business. And then if you still didn't get an answer to a question, leave it in the comments down below right here. Be sure to subscribe. Again, we are trying to reach 5K, hopefully by the end of this year. Be sure to follow me on all of my other social media networks, subscribe to my podcast, check out my Amazon shop. The links are always in the down bar below. I hope you all are having an awesome day, night, afternoon, whenever you all are watching this, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Okay, bye everybody.